Well, as the situation escalates, it widens across Iran, Israel, and parts of West Asia. The central question is no longer about the latest strike, it's about trajectory. Where does this lead? Let's just break down 4 realistic pathways analysts are watching currently, beginning with the first scenario, which is limited war and negotiated pause. This will actually involve intense but time-bound military action, so heavy airstrikes, targeted assassinations, limited missile exchanges, then quiet diplomacy through intermediaries such as Gulf states, back-channel security contacts perhaps. This model has precedent in the region. Escalate to re-establish deterrence, then step back before full war takes hold. The key indicators here would be clear messaging from both sides about objectives achieved, third-party mediation efforts gaining traction, and no widening of fronts beyond current theaters. Oil flow stabilizing quickly, and this scenario also depends on both sides believing they have restored credibility without needing further escalation. Which brings us to the second scenario, which is a prolonged shadow war. So there's no formal declaration, no peace, instead a grinding, deniable conflict across multiple domains. Cyberattacks on infrastructure, covert operations, proxy strikes perhaps through allied militias, maritime disruptions, limited missile exchanges below the threshold of total war. Iran and Israel have engaged in shadow conflict for years now. The difference now would be intensity and geographic spread. And the key indicators in this case: continued Hezbollah or militia activity without full invasion, cyber incidents targeting power grids, ports, maybe banking systems, assassinations or sabotage operations, sustained but controlled oil market volatility. And this path avoids headline war to say, but keeps the region unstable for months or perhaps for years. The third scenario is a regional war. This is the most destabilizing possibility. Multiple fronts open simultaneously. So the Hezbollah fully enters the war from Lebanon. Missile exchanges widen into Gulf states. US forces are directly targeted. The Strait of Hormuz shipping lanes are completely disrupted. You must note that's a huge consequence considering nearly 20% of global oil passes through Hormuz. Prolonged disruption would drive energy prices sharply higher. They would strain global supply chains and trigger financial market instability. And a key indicator in this case would be sustained closure or military contestation of Hormuz, large-scale mobilization by regional militaries if we have more boots on the ground as far as US is concerned, civilian evacuation from major Gulf cities, formal defense commitments triggered. And this scenario would have immediate global economic consequences one cannot deny. And the fourth scenario, a strategic reset. War reshapes calculations. After shock and escalation, leadership on both sides could reassess costs and open diplomatic channels. That could basically mean renewed nuclear negotiations, security guarantees through third parties, a revised regional balance of deterrence. History shows that major confrontations sometimes produce unexpected diplomatic openings, especially if military objectives prove costly. Key indicators in this scenario would be public signaling from Washington or Tehran about talks, as we have already picked up on, European or Gulf mediation initiatives, de-escalatory military posture, framework proposals around enrichment limits or regional security guarantees. Basically, the direction of this entire escalating situation depends on 3 variables: whether military objectives are clearly defined and achievable, whether civilian casualties or third country strikes force escalation, and whether oil routes remain functional. The coming days or hours will reveal whether this remains a contained confrontation, even though at this stage many argue it's not, or evolves into a structural shift in Middle East and their security architecture.